Alright, what's going on, y'all? So this is going to be a bit of a different video. This is definitely going to be one of my more candid or vulnerable videos I put out. But since I've been putting out, the running and hybrid content over the last couple weeks, I've had so many of y'all ask what's going on with bodybuilding. Are you done competing? What's going on? So today I'm going to be talking about all of that. So am I stopping bodybuilding? So right now I would consider myself semi-retired. I'm not officially retired yet. But the way this video might age, this might end up being my video officially announcing retirement. But as of right now, I'm semi-retired. I'm not saying I'll never get back, but it's going to take a lot to get me back on stage, and it's going to take the right circumstances, which I'll mention at the end of the video what it would take to get me back on stage. But right now, yes, I'm stopping competitive professional bodybuilding. Now, before I get into the reasons why that is, this video is my personal reasons on why I'm stopping bodybuilding. This is not meant to dissuade anybody from, achieving their goal of, becoming a professional bodybuilder, or if they want to, be in competitive bodybuilding. I've got a lot of pro bodybuilder friends, and I've got a lot of amateur bodybuilding friends that I root for that, I'm always going to be a fan of this sport. But with that being said, these are my personal reasons on why I'm stopping bodybuilding. So the first and the main big reason is probably not going to be a surprise to anybody out there. It's definitely not going to be a surprise to anybody that's been somewhat close to me in my circle in the last 2 years. And that's related to the drugs in the sport. So when it comes down to the PEDs, this has always been my least favorite part of bodybuilding. From the start, when I got into lifting when I was like 14, 15 years old and seeing Jay Cutler on the magazine and really getting into bodybuilding then, I fell in love with the training. The training was absolutely what I fell in love with, and I still to this day absolutely love the training with bodybuilding. And then I got into the diet and loved that. But when it came to the drug aspect, that was always more of a necessary evil of what I would need to do to, one, be a professional bodybuilder and then compete as a professional bodybuilder. It was always something that I didn't love doing, but it was something that I justified to essentially make this goal or this dream happen. Now, since I've been in the game, things are so different now than how they used to be. So back in the day, say in the 70s, 80s, in Arnold's era, Lee Haney's era, because so many guys now, when you talk about the negatives of steroids and PEDs, guys talk about, well, look, this guy's still alive. All these guys are still alive. Things were very, very, very different back in those days. And they're open about it. Back then, one, the compounds are different. Two, the doses were way less. And three, a big, big, big point is, when they weren't in competition prep, when they went into their off season, these guys would completely come off gear. Nowadays, this is just not happening. What I'm seeing across the board from amateurs, and I'm talking just regular guys that go to the gym that don't even compete, all the way up to, I know some pros personally, the gear game has just gotten completely out of hand. To where now, on cycles now are just grams and grams and grams of gear, and then there's no real off time. Most people are basically just running all the time. What they consider TRT or a cruise dose is not TRT or a cruise dose. It's frankly a full-on cycle at this point. So my fear is that in a few years, we're already seeing it happen on social media. You see all these kind of obituaries or health problems coming about from bodybuilders, and I know there's the caveat out there of there's been some worldwide issues in the last few years that have contributed to bodybuilder and athlete deaths. But I can say, me personally, I know people in this sport that never even got that, and they still have health issues. I met people in the last 6 months that are in kidney dialysis, and then a couple with heart issues, and completely not related to that, completely related to steroids. So, an issue I had was, I came from being a firefighter paramedic to where I knew physiology, how the body systems work, and then I knew pharmacology. And when I got into bodybuilding, I didn't just learn everything I could with the training, with diet, with supplementation, with recovery, but I also wanted to learn everything I could with the pharmacology. To one, do it in the most effective way, but then two, also do it in the safest way, because this was something that from the very start, I wasn't, super excited about. You'll see these guys that just can't wait to take their first cycle. All that was never me. It's always been something that caused a bit of anxiety. Before bodybuilding, I had literally no anxiety. I didn't even know what it felt to kind of have that really heavy anxiety to where that almost leads to a panic attack until bodybuilding. And why that was because when I'm taking the PEDs, I knew in the back of my head, even if blood work's looking great, and that is the thing, this point here is my health markers and my blood work has looked pretty decent over the last few years. There's been times when it's been way better than it was prior to competitive bodybuilding. But with that being said, I still knew in the back of my head what these things could be doing long term. And I'm not ignorant to the fact. Now, me stepping away from bodybuilding, even though my blood works looked great, health markers are fine, all that, I'm not ignorant to the fact that my time, competitive bodybuilding, enhanced bodybuilding, has done some damage or taken, some time off my life. But that is where, I got to the point that I wasn't willing to do that anymore. The whatever it takes mentality now has gotten too out of control. So the whatever it takes mentality is fantastic for pretty much every sport out there. It's going to be what allows you to be ultra competitive and set you apart from everybody else and really allow you to kind of go far as an individual. But whatever it takes mentality, when something dangerous like PEDs are involved, this is where it becomes very, very, very negative. And unfortunately, a lot of people at the amateur level, all the way to the professional level, a lot of people have the whatever it takes mentality. And I never had that when it came to PEDs. I knew, knowing how, the body systems work and pharmacology, all that, I knew the damage some of these things do. And a lot of these guys in the sport, a lot of the top guys in the sport, really ultra competitive guys in the sport, they're willing to just kind of turn off their brain or go ignorant to the fact of, the damage of what these drugs ultimately could do to the body. And I was never willing, or I was never able to turn that off. There's times I tried to be ignorant to it. There's times I wish I could be more at peace with just, taking the cycle and not worrying about it like a lot of guys do, but I never could. It always caused me massive anxiety to where I'd be sitting on the couch at night and just in the back of my head, just be worrying about it. So this has been something I've been dealing with for literally years, but especially over the last 6 to 9 months, it's been weighing heavy on me, causing more and more anxiety, and then making me do more of a cost-benefit analysis of what am I doing. My business and my coaching business is frankly not tied to competing at all. I still to this day, granted I'm going back into hybrid now, but over the last 4 years competitive bodybuilding, I'm pretty much doing that strict. I still have quite a few hybrid athletes on my roster, got a lot of lifestyle clients, obviously physique competitors, but very little of it has been tied to my actual competing, meaning me getting up on stage and whatever result I get from that has had very little impact on my business. I would say the only competition part that did was me turning pro. Getting IFBB behind my name definitely gave me a little bit of kind of that social proof, but other than that, the competition side, frankly, does not really do anything for me. I get very little even personal growth from it. So basically, doing the competitions, I'm spending money on the drugs, and you would be blown away if you knew how much money some people spend, some pros spend on PEDs. I'm talking, I know personally some pros that spend over 20 grand a year just in PEDs. So not only is it the money side that you're spending, and this isn't even talking about the cost of competing, this is just talking about the PED side. But then also the health cost that comes just to what? Just to stand on stage or just to potentially make it to the Olympia stage. And that's the other thing too, is, I getting into the sport and making the decision when I, stopped running and I made the very conscious decision I wanted to become a pro bodybuilder. That was the goal. The goal was to turn into an IFBB pro and then potentially make it on the Olympia stage. And that would have been badass, but that was never a burning desire. The burning desire was to become an IFBB pro, And then afterwards, if I was to win a pro show and make it to Olympia, that would have been badass. But at the same time, I was also realistic to know I was never going to be Mr. Olympia. I think if I was to do things completely right, the right circumstances, and gun it hard, I think potentially I could win a pro show and make it to the Olympia stage. But for what? Just to kind of look back when I'm 6 years old, assuming that I could still stay healthy doing that, and say that I made it to Olympia, when frankly I've had more personal accomplishment from doing things outside of bodybuilding than bodybuilding. I would say the only big personal accomplishment I got was hitting that big goal of turning IFBB. That was just because it was such a long time goal. But as far as personal accomplishment and actual growth came, I got so much more from that back in my ultra running days. Back spending all those miles on the trails, going through all those pain caves, then doing the race. I had so much more sense of accomplishment and actual growth come out of that than what I got from being on the stage itself. So the drug side, it just became to where it wasn't worth it to me, especially with today's whatever it takes mentality, to where I'm gonna now be competing against guys that can turn off that side of their brain telling them, hey, this isn't exactly healthy, this could be hurting you. I couldn't do that, and I'm playing against guys that are able to do that. So I'm essentially fighting behind the 8 ball here, because you can have the best genetics, you can have the best training, you can have the best diet and the best supplementation, but at the end of the day, if you're then facing other guys that everybody in the IFBB has pretty damn good genetics, they all have good training, all that, and so now you're going to be playing against guys that have that and have the whatever it takes mentality when it comes to drugs. That's just something I have never had and will not have. And then you top that on to, today's world's getting more and more rampant with the use of the drugs and the access to it, that now you see these 17, 18-year-old, 20-year-old guys on TikTok running these massive, massive, massive cycles that me as a pro never even considered going even close to that. And now you got these kids doing this sport, to me, in my opinion, at least enhanced competitive bodybuilding. So we're really talking about the IFBB here, not natural bodybuilding, but enhanced professional bodybuilding just got to be too much of a drug game, to where too much is involved by who's willing to spend the money and the health, essentially to achieve the look or the result. And it just was something that, I frankly have not been willing to do. So then another big point having to do with the drugs is I've seen so many guys in the sport essentially put themselves into a social media jail. They build this jail for themselves that their whole business is tied to, and they're stuck. So what I mean by this is, to where my business has not really been that attached to my competitive bodybuilding. It's been really attached to my physique, but not as much attached to my size. I have friends in the sport and know of guys in the sport that their business and their social media influence is attached to them essentially being a mass monster. Well, now they're essentially stuck, because if they were to stop taking the drugs that's supporting that size, a lot of that business and that social media influence is going to go away. Now, there's tons of coaches that have great coaching businesses not related to their physique at all, but there are a lot in this sport that do, and that's where you see guys that essentially get to the point they want to retire, and they can't come off the drugs. Part of that has to do with bigorexia and all that. And that is another point I got to, is I thought I might have bigorexia back a couple of years ago, but I am not someone who really struggled with bigorexia. I hit my biggest point this last fall, and it was big enough for me. I did not want to get any bigger, to where I got pretty happy with my physique. And so once you get to that point where you're really kind of content with your physique, it kind of hurts you with, the ambition of, being a competitive bodybuilder, where everybody's trying to continue improving the physique and continue getting bigger, and more shredded and all of that. I got to where I was really content, with my physique. And yes, I want to still improve my physique over time, but it's in a different way. So that was a kind of a big point. And then the other point related to the drugs and the PEDs with it is, I have, started lifting when I was like 14, 15 years old. After that, I did my first full marathon by the time I was 17. In college, I got into bodybuilding, did a big bulk then, joined the National Guard. After that, I became a firefighter paramedic and really kind of started getting back into more endurance sports, endurance running. And then after that, went full on in being an ultra marathoner, then a hybrid athlete doing like CrossFit, bodybuilding, and ultra running. And then I made the clear decision to, chase the goal of becoming a pro bodybuilder and kind of going all in with that. I have never felt so unhealthy as my time as being a bodybuilder. And this is with good blood work, good health markers, all of that. But someone coming from having, great VO2 max, having endurance, and still having strength and functionality and mobility and all of that, to then being a big bodybuilder to where essentially the 2 hours in the gym is the time where you're feeling like an animal and feeling strong and feeling great, and the rest of the day sucks. It sucks putting on your shoes, sitting on the couch being out of breath, sex sucks, everything is harder and kind of sucks outside the gym. To me, it felt too unhealthy. Once you've been living in a healthy body, you can feel what unhealthy feels like. And that then too drives up the anxiety. That goes back to, one, I know what I'm taking with PEDs, but then two, I can actually feel the unhealthiness of this weight. That I wasn't able to turn off in my head, what this could be doing potentially long-term, as far as like longevity and all that goes. It's just, once again, just knowing too much. Coming from, the kind of paramedic days and just my knowledge and background with all that, I just knew too much to turn it off. And I frankly missed feeling that kind of lightness I felt, when I was running and as a hybrid athlete. And so that was another big point too, is when I hit my heaviest at 260 back last November, that was kind of a big breaking point for me of this, what am I doing? I feel heavy, I feel unhealthy, and this frankly just kind of sucks. So that's kind of really too when I had been having all these thoughts, but that's then when the mindset shift kind of started, was when I hit the heaviest, and it was heavy, and like I hit 260 with still abs. It was pretty decent condition for 260, and even with that, it didn't feel great. So that's the other big point too, is I could actually feel myself being unhealthy. And then I had a conversation with a buddy last week, my buddy Dylan, and we were talking about about all of this, especially related to PEDs and drugs. And I said, when you're single and an ambitious single male, you are kind of willing to kind of live like a lion for a few years rather than living, many years as a sheep, or whatever the saying is. You're able to kind of turn off any negatives in your mind for that ambition, for those goals, because it's just you're worrying about. Who cares if I take 5 years off my life if I can be on the Olympia stage? It's easier to justify. Well, when you have someone you care about, or you have people you care about, and you really start realizing what's important in life and what you want in life, and you want now to be there to support the people you love for as long and as healthy as possible, it does change things. So, when you get married or you have a kid, anything like that, it really puts everything into perspective. And so that was a big thing, is, I've just gotten to where there's other things in my life way more important to me than standing on that stage, or even frankly the look. And so the drugs to me are out of the question. And so that's where I'll talk to you towards the end of the video what it would take for me to come back to professional competitive bodybuilding. But these are kind of the main points related to PEDs and drugs. Now, this is very, very kind of, I don't want to make this video 3 hours long. This is pretty surface level, but all the points I just mentioned, I spent hours on each one, going deep and really sitting with myself and really kind of expanding those out. So these are all kind of just surface kind of points of those, but that's it. It really comes down to the whatever it takes mentality of the drugs and competitive bodybuilding now has just turned me off to it so much. So that has to do with the drugs and the PEDs, and that is by far the main reason I'm stepping away from bodybuilding, but those aren't the only reasons. So coming from the hybrid and especially the running community, And then being a firefighter and military and being around a lot of athletes that way. But let's just say the running community, I was around so many positive, light people. When you're around the running community, unless it's, the guys that are like literally in competition, the top 3 guys in competition to win that marathon, everybody else that's out there that day, whether it's a training run, whether it's a race, everybody else out there is out there for themselves to try to get a PR, to try to finish the race. It's a sense of accomplishment for themselves. Because of that, you now have all these very, very non-ego involved people that are very, very positive, very, very encouraging. Everybody's kind of out there for each other. The bodybuilding community, and my experience is directly related to the community here in Austin, Texas, the bodybuilding community here in Austin, Texas. So that's mainly what I'm talking about, but I have seen this nationwide as well. The bodybuilding community is about the most egoic, narcissistic community I have ever seen. Now, this is a general blanket statement. I have met amazing people, amazing bodybuilders that are not like this, that are the most amazing, selfless people you'd ever see. But for the most part, the ego and the narcissism in the bodybuilding community is so dark and so negative, it is such a turnoff. You will meet people that will smile to your face, be the biggest snakes behind your back, talk shit behind your back. And you got to think about it, why that is. It's just like what I said with the running. Everybody's out there kind of trying to get their own PR, and it's not in competition with other people. And even if it is, it's more just like friendly, fun competition. The bodybuilding side is all image related. So it's everybody trying to compete on, I look better than you. And so even if they're not saying it to your face, even if they're being nice, you'll see this on social media. You'll feel it in the gym to where everybody will be cocking up to each other, trying to kind of be the essentially the alpha in the gym, or the alpha on social media and all that, based off of just the image. Like I said, this is not everybody, but this is a lot of what I've experienced in the bodybuilding world. And it's very, very, very different than the complete opposite of the running community. And this is why, the people around here in my circle know this. I've been mostly a lone wolf my time as a bodybuilder because of this. I've met very few bodybuilders that live the lifestyle and that are competitive, that frankly I'd want to spend a lot of time with outside the gym, just because of this reason. Whereas in the hybrid, the running world, the firefighting community, military, all that, these are people that I vibe great with. But the ego and the narcissism as a whole in the bodybuilding community has been a massive, massive, massive turnoff. So that's a big one. I already mentioned how, I got to the point where I was overall pretty pleased and happy with my physique. Definitely happy with the size. I didn't want more size. And so that was a big point. And then another big reason was, and this is kind of the reason I'm going hybrid and running again, is yes, I had an sense of accomplishment every time I would do bodybuilding prep and get on stage and all that. But it paled in comparison to the sense of accomplishment I had when I was doing hard, extreme physical challenges. Living in those pain caves during those countless training hours, the pain caves of a hard race, and really, really testing your endurance, the growth and the mental callousing, the mental benefit, the spiritual benefit that comes out of that was immense compared to the growth I would get from a bodybuilding prep. Yes, people talk about how hard bodybuilding is, how hard bodybuilding preps are, and all that. And yes, there are hard aspects to it. Yes, you're going to get to, when you get down to single digit body fat percentages, all that. Yes, things get hard and some days just suck. But in my experience, dieting down for a show is way easier than doing hard, extreme physical challenges. And at least a way less growth, in my opinion. And I've seen this with the community too. I mean, it goes once again to the people that are in the community. You can see the level of growth as a human being. In once again, this is not everybody, but by and large, the growth I see in people doing hard, extreme physical challenges on a regular basis versus people so just self-involved on their own image and getting on stage to compete their look versus someone else, it's completely different. Dieting down for shows, essentially just following the plan. As long as you can just go in robot mode and just live the plan day in, day out, you're going to get to that conditioning point you need. It's just then whether or not you have the look or not to win. But it's pretty easy. It's different than, having a hard, extreme physical challenge that scares the shit out of you. You don't know if you're going to finish it or not. You gotta mentally push yourself through it. So that's another big reason is I was craving that kind of mental callousing, craving the growth I had back in the ultra and hybrid days. Because yes, I've grown over the last 4 years while bodybuilding, but definitely not at the rate I did when I was doing these hard physical challenges. So that's one thing I want more of. And then with that, I'm already feeling so much happier, more at peace. I feel more functional, more mobile, and this is after just a couple weeks of running. So these are all the kind of the main points. The main one is, the drugs related to the sport. I'm just not willing to do it anymore. It's just too taxing on the health. Even if blood work and health markers and all that are okay, I'm not ignorant to the fact what these could be doing long term. I'm not ignorant to how I actually feel within my body when I'm taking them. When I'm on TRT, I feel fantastic. When I'm on cycle, I feel like ass. I feel strong in the gym, and some things are mood elevators and all that, but for the most part, I feel the most just even keeled, strong, capable, everything you'd want from TRT. I have that on TRT. Once I push above and I go super physiological, to me it doesn't feel good. It comes with too much inflammation, too much systemic fatigue that I can feel and I don't like. So to come back, what it would take for me to come back, obviously I'm not going to compete as a bodybuilder. So 212 or open bodybuilding is out of the question. I'm 225 right now. My classic cutoff at the pro level is 197. Men's physique cutoff is 187 at my height. So I'm still quite a bit heavier than that. So I did have someone ask, well, why don't you, as you're coming down, then go ahead and get back on stage. If I was to get back on stage, it would, yes, be either men's physique or classic physique. The problem is I don't see myself running a cycle anymore because of the cost-benefit analysis I mentioned. If I'm not going to be Mr. Olympia, and unless you're like top 3 at Olympia anyway, you're not really getting a lot of financial benefit from it anyway, unless you're C-bomb Derek Lunsford, your top 3, top 6. It's not really making a lot of financial sense for you to do it anyway, and it could be harming your health. So even though I'd be able to run pretty dang low gear to get on the men's physique or classic physique stage, I just still don't see myself weighing that out with the cost-benefit analysis and it being worth it. I'm not going to say I'm never going to do it, but that's what it would take. It would essentially be me being on the men's physique or classic physique stage, running a very, very low amount of gear, just enough for the the cosmetics for what it would take for that, and that'd be it. But that's frankly why I probably won't do it, because I'm probably not going to be able to be competitive to win, and that's the only thing. I would only get on stage if I think I could win. And it's going to be very hard, very, very, very hard to win on TRT. There's some things just that add that cosmetic benefit and the edge that other people will have, that I'm, at least in this point in my life, I'm done with. So that's what it would take. It'd be definitely on the men's physique, classic physique stage, but I don't see that happening. I'm fired up now about getting back into hybrid and doing some hard challenges. And I want to do some challenges that scare the shit out of me, and that scared me way back before bodybuilding when I was ultra running. I've already got a couple of mine that are, I'm starting to kind of get ignited again. So we're going to see where this leads. But now is the era of the hybrid monster. So now I'm going to still maintain all my bodybuilding training. Nothing's changing with that. Still eating the diet because I love this. I love the bodybuilding lifestyle minus the drugs. So still maintaining my life as a bodybuilder, but now also adding in hybrid and going all in with this too. Yeah, I want to see what build, what physique we can hold as we're tackling these like insane challenges. So this is the era of the hybrid monster. So this is going to be completely new. Everything's new now. This is how I'm structuring this is different than how I did back in the day. It's going to be more intense now because I'm still maintaining everything as a bodybuilder, as I have been as a pro bodybuilder. It's just now doing also with the running modality added on, and we're going to tackle it hard. So I'm excited for where this is going to go. I'm sure I'm going to have some questions come out of this. You know, I touched on the main reasons why, but all of these topics that I mentioned today, these are points that I have really, really fleshed out and really thought deeply within myself for literally months now, hours and hours and hours on end on each of these points. So if you have any questions with any of this, definitely drop them below. And if I need to expand on another video on any aspect of this, that whatever it takes mentality or the health consequences of, because I know all the time, people think that the jab is what's causing a lot of these issues. And I, to help justify it, even though I knew it wasn't true, to help justify it, I would try to agree with that to some degree over the last couple of years. And I do think that obviously has contributed to some bodybuilder and athlete issues and deaths, but it is definitely not it is definitely not the main picture, guys. Before the jab, there's people having major health issues, and you'll see on Generation Iron and social media, you'll see these obituaries and these bodybuilders having health issues. These are just the ones you know of. I can't tell you how many amateurs and just regular gym goers I know or I've met over the last couple of years, but especially the last 6 months, that either themselves or someone they know personally have major health issues. And this is where, you'll quickly learn as a firefighter and paramedic running calls on sick people every day that there's a difference between quantity of life and quality of life. Yes, you want the longevity. You want to be here as long as possible for the people you love, but you also want that with good quality of life. If you are on dialysis, kidney dialysis, which frankly, a lot of steroid users, it's not that uncommon to end up needing dialysis. There's a lot of amateurs you would never, ever hear about that go on dialysis because of steroids. You will, if you go talk to a dialysis nurse, and she will tell you how many ex-bodybuilders are on dialysis. It will completely change your quality of life. So these are my reasons. I'm definitely more all in on health and not just physical health, mental health, spiritual health, and just overall quality of life. Getting that functionality back, mobility, and just being able to kick ass at life again, rather than just being able to kick ass in the gym and then on stage. But these are my reasons. If you've got any comments or questions below, definitely drop them below. I'd love to go ahead and hear from you guys. Be happy, be positive, be powerful. Have a great rest of your day.